a fourfold salary increase would seem like a breakthrough, unless the fine print tells a different story. That's what drove the WNBA Players Union to walk away from a deal that included massive raises, but also stripped away key benefits like free housing. Clark's influence looms large over the debate, as her marketability and magnetism have become central to the league's success. But the union argues that flashy salary figures can't mask the underlying issues.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Lack of financial transparency, an unclear salary cap, and potential erosion of player leverage through schedule changes. It's a bold stand in an already delicate balance of power. What's at stake isn't just one contract cycle. It's the league's entire future. As owners weigh the threat of a lockout to reassert control, the players are gambling on public support and long-term equity. Clark's presence has made the league more valuable than ever. But if this standoff continues, the WNBA may find itself sidelined by its own mismanagement. In a league fueled by individual stardom, alienating that star power may prove to be the costliest mistake yet. The WNBA just handed its players a contract proposal that looked like a once-in-a-lifetime offer. A 4-time salary increase. Minimums up to $225,000. Average salaries over $500,000. Max salaries at $1 million guaranteed, with revenue sharing on top. The league called it transformational. The media called it historic. And the players' union? They called it a hard no. That rejection sent shockwaves through the league. Fans, analysts, and owners alike were left stunned. But for the players, the answer made perfect sense. Because when they looked at the offer, they didn't just see dollar signs, they saw red flags. On the surface, the numbers looked generous. But beneath the surface, there were structural changes and fine print that told a different story. The most immediate backlash centered around the elimination of free housing, a benefit long considered essential in a league where many players still don't have massive off-court endorsement deals. Yes, the salaries were rising, but so were the expenses. For a player making $225,000 in a city like New York or Los Angeles, suddenly paying out-of-pocket for rent, transportation, and relocation costs changes the math real fast. It's not about whether the stars can afford it. It's about what this cutback says about the league's priorities. It looked like a move made by executives more concerned with optics than outcomes. That alone would have caused friction. But the real fight started with the numbers the league didn't. The players demanded transparency. They wanted to know exactly how the revenue sharing would work, what metrics were being used, what financial data the owners were basing these projections on, what kind of cap increases would be implemented to allow teams to actually support higher salaries. They got vague estimates, promises, no audits, no hard math. So when people ask, why would you reject $1 million contract? That's why. Because if the numbers can't be verified, then they're not real. They're PR, and players have been burned by that before. What's happening right now is bigger than a salary dispute. It's about control. The players are finally in a position to leverage their value. The league has never been hotter. Ratings are up. Attendance is booming. Social media is on fire. And that's not happening because of some marketing campaign. It's happening because of the players. Caitlin Clark, Aya Wilson, Angel Reese. These names are driving the entire conversation around the league right now. And yet, when those same players ask for clarity, consistency, and control over how their labor is monetized, they get shutdowns and threats of a lockout. That's where the owners come in. Most of them are billionaires. They don't rely on the WNBA to make their money. In fact, the league has historically operated at a loss. But with the influx of new fans and momentum from breakout stars, they finally see a path to profitability, and they want to shape that path on their terms. So they put forward an offer that gives a lot, but takes back even more. 2. Housing benefits? Gone. Transparency? Limited. Cap increases? Unclear. Season expansion? Accelerated without full union buy-in. Oh, and let's not forget the schedule shift. The league wants to extend the season and start earlier to avoid conflicting with college basketball and NFL season. In theory, that sounds like a smart business move. but it comes with consequences. March Madness isn't just a college event. It's a massive spotlight for women's basketball as a whole. And it's one of the few mainstream platforms where WNBA players still have visibility. Disrupting that cycle without a fully baked plan could backfire in a big way. The players saw that too. Because this isn't just about more games. It's about how those games are marketed, how exposure is shared, and whether the push for expansion is rooted in long-term strategy or just a rush to cash in on short-term hype. And let's talk about the risk of a lockout. That's the nuclear option, and it's not off the table. The owners are sending signals that they're willing to let it happen if it means resetting the terms of engagement. For them, it's a strategic play. They know the league is gaining traction, but they also know most players don't have the financial cushion to sit out for long. And here's where things get really risky. The WNBA is finally in the cultural conversation in a way it hasn't been before. People who've never watched a game are now tuning in. Celebrities are showing up courtside. Corporate sponsors are increasing their bids. The Caitlin Clark effect is real. And all of that momentum is now hanging by a thread. If the league locks out its players now, it risks losing everything it's built in the last year. You don't just pause that kind of heat and expect it to come back on. Fans are fickle. Media cycles are short. If the season goes dark, so does the buzz. And it's not just fans who walk away. It's sponsors. It's networks. It's opportunity. Meanwhile, the players, the ones who made all this possible, are being asked to accept a deal that looks good on paper but fails to address the core issue, shared growth. The union isn't asking for the moon. They're asking for access to the same data the league uses to pitch these big offers. They want accountability, protection, a clear path forward that doesn't rely on blind trust. They want a partnership, not a payout. So now we're here, at a crossroads. The league's leadership can either go back to the table with real answers, or risk watching the most exciting era in WNBA history fall apart under the weight of its own contradictions. This isn't about one player or one deal. It's about whether the WNBA is willing to evolve into a modern sports league, one that treats its athletes as collaborators, not liabilities. Caitlin Clark said no, and that matters. Not because she's ungrateful, but because she knows what her presence is worth. The league knows it too. That's what makes this rejection so explosive. It wasn't just a refusal, it was a power check. And whether the owners want to admit it or not, the balance of power is shifting. Slowly, loudly, unstoppably. The union's gamble might look reckless to some, but to others, it's the only path to real change. And if this moment leads to a lockout, it won't be because the players wanted to burn it all down. It'll be because they were finally done being told to accept half measures as milestones. So what do you think? Was this the right move? Or did the players just make a huge mistake? Are the owners being strategic or selfish? And what happens to all that momentum if this season disappears? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're riding with the players on this one. Share this with someone who needs to understand what's really going on behind the numbers, and subscribe. We're not done yet. This story is just getting started. Right now, there's no middle ground left. No diplomatic phrasing. No carefully worded press releases are going to make this look like a misunderstanding. The WNBA players, led symbolically by Caitlin Clark's silent defiance, are drawing a line in the sand. And they're not moving. What's wild is how quickly this turned. Just months ago, the narrative was all about growth. Sellouts, a surge in viewership, games moving from streaming services into primetime slots on ESPN. Everyone, from execs to fans, was chanting the same thing. This is the moment. And yet, this is where we ended up, with the league threatening a lockout and players rejecting what's being painted as the most lucrative CBA offer in WNBA history. To understand the tension, you have to look past the headlines and into the fine print. The league's big numbers? Impressive, sure, but the devil is always in the details. Players were offered a max salary of $1 million. But it wasn't just a blank check. It came with structural limits, vague revenue-sharing promises, and a salary cap that made it mathematically impossible for every team to fairly distribute the wealth. There's no point in having one or two seven-figure athletes if the rest of the roster gets gutted to make room for them. And that's exactly the scenario the union saw coming. Let's not sugarcoat this. WNBA players aren't being greedy. They're being smart. They've spent years getting the short end of the stick, traveling commercial while playing back-to-back games, getting underpaid despite rising ratings, and watching the league make big sponsorship announcements while they quietly juggle off-season jobs overseas. So when the league finally shows up with an offer that looks generous, you can bet they're going to read every single line. Twice. And that's where things broke down. No guarantee on transparency. No clarity on how revenue sharing would actually work. No commitment to audited numbers. Just projections and estimates, wrapped in optimism and vague future partnership language. Players weren't buying it, and they shouldn't have to. This is their career, their income, their health, their time, too. And yet, the owners are acting shocked, disappointed, confused even, as if offering more. Money, without real accountability, should be enough to shut everyone up and get back on the court. That's the disconnect. The players don't just want more, they want better. Better structure, better benefits, better governance. Because what good is a pay raise if it comes at the cost of security, consistency, and basic working conditions? Take the housing controversy, for example. In the same offer that proposed a massive salary bump, the league also suggested removing one of the few guaranteed perks players had left: free housing. That move didn't go unnoticed. For players making the league minimum, even at $225,000, losing access to team housing in cities like San Francisco, New York, or Seattle means forking over huge chunks of their salary just to live near their team. And for those without lucrative endorsement deals or overseas income, that raise starts to shrink fast. Worse, the move came off as tone-deaf. To fans, to the media, to the players. Because this isn't about whether someone can afford rent. It's about being nickel and dimed after years of underinvestment. It's about a league that suddenly has momentum, turning around and telling its workforce to pick up the slack for that progress. And then there's the looming. Let's be clear, a lockout right now would be catastrophic. This isn't a stagnant league trying to recover. It's one in the middle of a cultural boom. Caitlin Clark's entrance has made headlines around the globe. Her college career already had the nation tuning in, and now her pro debut is doing the same. She's the face of this league's next era, and she's not playing along. Her quiet rejection of the CBA sends a massive message. She's not looking to cash a quick check and keep quiet. She's looking to protect the growth she's helping create. And she's not, because this movement isn't just about the Caitlins or the Ayes. It's about every player in the league who isn't on every billboard. The ones working just as hard, traveling just as far, risking injury every night, without the luxury of generational wealth behind them. They're the ones most affected by these decisions. And they're the ones the union is fighting for. Now, here's what makes this even more complicated. The power imbalance between players and owners is very real. Most of the team owners are billionaires. Their bottom line doesn't live or die by the WNBA. They can afford a lockout. They can sit back and wait. To them, this is a long game, a strategic reset if they have to. But the players? They don't have that same margin, which is exactly why this standoff is so risky and so powerful. Because saying no to this deal, knowing the personal and professional risks, takes a different level of conviction. It's a gamble, and the union knows it. But they also know that settling now could mean locking in another decade of decisions made without their input. And once again, we come back to the theme: control. The owners want to set the terms and call it partnership. But real partnership doesn't come with ultimatums. It doesn't come with backdoor cuts to benefits or vague financial promises. It comes with transparency, shared risk, shared reward. That's what the union is asking for. And so far, they haven't gotten it. Instead, what they've gotten is public confusion, selective leaks, and pressure to cave. But they haven't caved, and that's why this moment matters so much. Because this isn't just about this season. It's about the future of the WNBA as a viable, sustainable business that values the people who built it. A lockout now would derail everything. It would freeze momentum. It would frustrate new fans who were just getting invested. It would give sponsors second thoughts. And worst of all, It would send a message that even when women's sports are finally winning, someone at the top is still willing to pull the plug over power. That can't happen. This league is too important. The growth is too real. The athletes are too valuable. And this generation of players, they've worked too hard for too long to accept a deal that still leaves them asking questions in the dark. So what happens next? That depends on whether the owners are ready to treat this like a partnership or just another business transaction. Because the truth is, the players are not backing down. Caitlin Clark's name may be on every marquee, but behind her is a wall of teammates, union reps, and veterans who've spent their whole careers fighting for a league that respects their work. If the owners think they can split the group or play favorites, they're mistaken. This is a labor force unified not just by frustration, but by strategy. And now, the ball's in the league's court. They can return to the table with transparency, with real numbers, and with respect, or they can roll the dice on a lockout that might damage the league more than they're prepared to admit. There's no spin left that can clean this up. The WNBA handed players a flashy contract proposal with 7-figure headlines, and the players didn't flinch. They read it, dissected it, and threw it right back. The owners are stunned. The league's executives are trying to keep the optics under control. But the players? They're sending a message louder than any press conference. We're not going to sell out our future for a salary headline. Let's get real. This isn't about money, not entirely. It's about who holds the steering wheel. About whether a league built on the backs of underpaid, overworked athletes finally steps into a new era with them, or continues to try running the show without their input. And right now, it looks like the latter. Because when you strip back the headlines and marketing language, what the owners actually offered was a trade. Sure, here's some more cash. But in return, we're taking away guaranteed housing. We're expanding the season without full negotiation. We're offering vague, non-binding revenue sharing without opening the books. And we're leaving salary caps in place that make it impossible for teams to support more than 1 or 2 high-earning players. That's not a partnership. That's a chess move. And the union knew it. The rejection wasn't emotional. It was calculated. These players aren't walking into boardrooms wide-eyed and desperate. They've been around long enough to recognize when a proposal is built to look generous, but designed to consolidate control. When growth is dangled in front of them, but only if they agree to shut up and trust the process. And that's not going to work anymore, because the WNBA isn't in survival mode right now. It's in breakout mode. The league is riding the kind of momentum most sports executives pray for: viral moments, packed arenas, mainstream buzz, and superstar names like Caitlin Clark drawing millions of new eyeballs. This isn't just an upswing. It's a cultural shift, and the players know exactly what their visibility is worth now. They're the reason casual fans are finally tuning in. The reason sponsors are showing up. The reason broadcast networks are moving games from obscure time slots to prime time. The owners didn't create this moment. The players did. And they're not about to hand that leverage over in exchange for a partially unwrapped gift. Because that's what the league's offer really was. A step forward tied to a leash. The league thought players would see the $1 million number and sign on the dotted line. But what they didn't expect was that this generation of players, led publicly by Caitlin Clark and backed by veterans like Breanna Stewart and Aya Wilson, wasn't just looking for money. They're looking for equity. Not the kind you cash out of a bonus check. The kind that reshapes how a league is run. And that's what scares the because if they give up true revenue transparency, that opens the door to accountability. If they remove cap limits that artificially suppress pay across the league, that forces actual investment in depth, not just star power. If they keep guaranteed housing, that sets a precedent for treating players like professionals, not expendable talent. And if they let players in on big-picture decisions, that means the power starts shifting permanently, which is exactly what the owners don't want. They'd rather hand over checks and keep calling the shots behind closed doors. But this time, the players are saying no. And it's not just a negotiation tactic. It's a full-on stance, one that carries risk, absolutely, but also purpose. Because if they accept this deal now, they know it sets the tone for every deal that follows. that accepting unclear revenue models, inconsistent benefits, and manipulated caps today means living with the consequences tomorrow. And the cost? It's not just financial, it's generational. Accepting a flawed deal now means telling the next wave of players, those watching from college gyms or overseas leagues, that this is as good as it gets. That even at the peak of visibility, even when you're filling arenas and trending on every platform, you're still expected to sign contracts based on trust, not truth. And that's why the union didn't blink. Even with the threat of a lockout, even with public pressure mounting, even with fans asking, wasn't this enough? Because here's the part that isn't making headlines yet. A lockout hurts everyone, but it hurts the league most. The owners can afford to lose a season. Financially, they'll survive. But the league? The league loses momentum, loses fans, loses sponsors, and loses credibility. The excitement around Caitlin Clark's rookie year? Gone. The new deals with brands and media platforms? Frozen. The growing cultural relevance of women's basketball? On pause. And in a media cycle that moves faster than ever, a pause is as good as a stop. Meanwhile, the players are betting that now is the only time to push this hard, that they have the world attention, and that if they cave now, they may not get it back. And they're right, because this isn't 2015. This isn't 2020. This is 2025, and the WNBA is finally being watched. And if the league wants to continue growing, it has to do more than talk big. It has to lead big. And that starts with how it treats its players, how it structures its deals, and how it shares the rewards of the growth these women are directly responsible for. So now, the owners have a choice to make. Do they hold the line, call the players bluff, and risk a lockout that could unravel the best year in league history? Or do they acknowledge that if the WNBA is truly going to evolve, it has to do so with its players, not around them? That answer will define not just this season, but the league's identity for the next decade. Because whether the owners like it or not, the players aren't backing down. And if they don't come back to the table with transparency, clarity, and a real commitment to equitable growth, they'll find themselves without a season and without the public support. Caitlin Clark's silence speaks volumes. She didn't throw a fit. She didn't post a cryptic Instagram story. She didn't blast anyone in the press. She simply said no and let the league deal with the fallout. That's the power of this moment. It's not loud. It's not messy. It's not emotional. It's strategic, intentional. And if the league doesn't act fast, it could be historic for all the wrong reasons. So where do you stand on the standoff? Did the players make the right call, rejecting the offer? Are the owners making a mistake that could cost them everything? Hit like if you believe transparency should be non-negotiable. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone still trying to figure out how we got here. And don't forget to subscribe. We're staying on this story as it unfolds. Because this isn't just a contract dispute. It's a battle for the soul of the WNBA.